can't do it. We'll do it live.
What an idiot.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Oh.
Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
All right, here we go. I think we're on now. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know if we're on yet because it has been a tough morning for me. Technical problems. We get started late. In fact, I was doing 5 minutes of this. 5 minutes of this show thinking that we were on and then realized, hey, moron, you're not on. So apologies to everyone. You know what? I'm allowed to have one F-up, one screw-up, right? I know I haven't had many, but that was a major one. So we get the daily puck drop started 10 minutes late. My bad on that one. Apologies for everyone trying to watch there on Twitter and on YouTube and the PuckSports mobile app listening there. I'll be honest with you. Maybe on the mobile app you were able to hear me rant for like 10 minutes, but then on Twitter and on YouTube, you obviously could not see me, even though I was talking for like 5-7 minutes thinking, oh, I'm on. I was never on because I'm an idiot. So here we are. Finally, we're on and we're going on and we're doing it. And we're live. And as Bill O'Reilly always says, F it, we're live, okay? Because that's what we're doing. So welcome in. We finally got the whole thing started. If you're just joining us here, I had a wonderful, I'll be honest with you, a wonderful 5 minutes before I realized I wasn't actually on. The big news is Uchenna Nwosu. And also now the good news is I just repeat what I said. Uchenna Nwosu placed on the IR, and so he's out now for a minimum of 4 games, and then he'll be eligible to return November 17th against San Francisco. I'm just laughing at myself. Just what a moron I am. That's okay. It's okay to be a moron. It's okay to laugh at yourself. We should all laugh at ourselves more. And again, I will laugh at myself. I just got a text, or was texting back and forth with Garafolo because I was like, hey, Garafolo, why didn't you give me a heads up that he's out? And Garafolo said, hey, expect him to miss more than 4 games. He says it's not a season ending surgery and that it won't knock him out for the year. But he did tell me, and he's like, yeah, you can go ahead and go and say this on the air, that it will be longer than the 4 weeks, which is just craptastic news. I mean, for defense, it's already struggling, right? And then now you get the news that he's going to be out for an extended period of time. It's just not good. Hasn't been good for him. I mean, he had that one real good year, when they first signed him over from LA. And, since then he's played in 24 games. Since they signed that 2-year deal, was $19 million. He blew up. That first season, they reward him, with a contract. What was it? 3 years, $59 million. 32 of it was guaranteed. The 9.5 sacks in 2022. But 6 games last year, first 4 seasons, he had 15 sacks. But, one of the topics I was going to touch on today, before we get to Danny Kelly from The Ringer, we'll talk all things NFL, including this story, fantasy football Seahawks with Danny. We've moved Danny, by the way, mentioned this yesterday on the show, moved Danny to Tuesdays during the football season. We kind of had to shuffle some things around just because baseball's over and we had to kind of fix some gaps, with our baseball and football guests. And so Danny will now be joining us on Tuesdays throughout the season. And it's perfect because now we get Danny's Waiver Wire Tuesday there for fantasy football. If you got a question for Danny and you want to hit me up on Twitter at Puck2040, send it there, or you can just do it in the YouTube chat as well if you have a fantasy football question for old Danny B. Kelly, who again will join us coming up in about 6 minutes from right now, unless I F up something else again. Johnny Cans will join us coming up around 10:45. We'll talk all things college football. We'll see if he's going to cover the Huskies parade that Jordan Reffitt's going to hold here coming up in about a week or two of the We Should Be 6-0. And I've talked to Jordan last night. We're trying to get T-shirts printed for him, and I'll reach out to Simply Seattle if they would like to do it. And Jordan says he'll foot the bill. He'll cover it all. The We Should Be 6-0 t-shirt. So thank you, Jordan, for your service to this show and this community. By the way, we're taping Puck the Huskies podcast later today, a day early, because old Woody, Elise Woodward's got something going on. I'm looking forward to that conversation coming up later. But Nwosu on the IR, as Garafolo told me, expected to be longer than the 4 weeks, but not season ending for him yet, I guess. What I was going to get into before the Nwosu story and information came down was that, I mean, this defense, there are no more excuses, for this defense. And I think we should get past the excuse making for this. And I think what happened on Sunday with the Giants, I think if you were of the opinion, hey, Monday night against the Lions, man, it was, they were missing all these guys. That shouldn't be a reflection. I heard of this a lot. It's a lazy narrative to say that their defense wasn't good because they were missing all their starters against Detroit. Well, that person or people that had that talk, they're wrong. It wasn't a lazy narrative. They're not good. Defensively, they are not good right now. They are propped up by 2 games. 2 games and 2 games only. One was the Broncos game in the beginning of the season, in which they started a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, making his first start. He's nervous. He's scared. Sean Payton's not going to put him in any bad positions, and he didn't. And there was a lot of checkdowns, and it wasn't the full offense. It never was going to be the full offense, probably, for him. And then the other one was Miami, who's out without Tua. And look at their offense without this guy. He clearly makes that whole thing operate. Come on. We all know if they had a healthy Tua Tagovailoa against Miami's putting up points on that team. They just are. And so they're propped up by 2 games and 2 games only. The rest of the games have been terrible defensively. They were terrible against New England. They were terrible against Detroit. And they were god-awful against the Giants. I mean, think about the Patriots game for a second. That's the game I just keep going back to is the Patriots game. Do you know that if you look at the Patriots, that's the most points they have scored all season long was against that defense? 23. That's the best their offense was this season, was against Seattle. 310 total yards and the 185 yards on the ground for New England that day. Both highs. They haven't done that since. In fact, I think there's only one other game where they've even kind of come close to that. New England is awful. Awful, especially on offense. Terrible. And you needed overtime to beat them. Think about that. And you can't use the excuse of, injuries. They were healthy. They were 100% healthy. Minus Nwosu, who you didn't have anyways to start the season. So that didn't matter. They were at full strength, and they needed a Julian Love blocked field goal, by the way, to really win that game. Because remember, New England hits that field goal, all of a sudden they're up by 6. Now you need a touchdown to win the game, not a field goal there by Jason Myers to tie it up, right? I mean, that's how bad this defense has been. I mean, that's just flat out the reality of it. Don't let anybody try to spin this any differently. And listen, can it improve? Of course it can improve. Was it going to be fixed right away? Was he going to completely change everything? Probably not. But I think there were a lot of us out there that were more intrigued by the offense. Now, their offense has got their own issues, and they didn't look good against the Giants, but could also make an argument they looked great against the Lions. But who were more excited about what the offense was going to do? Defensively, I don't know. I just don't. Secondary is legit. I just don't see it with the linebackers. I don't at all. I just don't see playmakers there. And defensively, on the D line, I mean, Murphy has shown flashes, but again, you haven't had him with the last couple. Not going to have him again this week. probably it's way too much for a rookie to carry that load to change that defensive line. I've been the stats bear it out that he's a much better player than he is. I've always kind of been wishy-washy on Leonard Williams, but I think he's more positive for Leonard Williams, but he just can't be the only guy. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's hard to watch them play defensively right now. And that was the reason he was hired. He was hired to come in and change the defense. And it's safe to say, through 5 weeks, you can say that their defense hasn't looked any better at all than last year under Pete Carroll. And that's too bad, because I think a lot of us thought that was going to be a big change. And we're hoping that was going to be a big change. All right, let's talk more things, more on the Seahawks, more on the NFL, more on fantasy football. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're working. We had some technical problems at the beginning of the show, Danny Kelly, but I've got it all up and running right now. We got the crack staff of the technical directors behind us working hard at it. And the technical directors are my 2 dogs, my 2 labs lying at my feet. They're the ones that have got this thing up and running. Danny B. Nice. Kelly joins us now on Tuesdays throughout the NFL season. Danny, of course, senior staff writer, Ringer Fantasy Football Show, Ringer NFL Draft Show, all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. Go check them out. Tap room open every single day, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Open to close. Do it, and they'll give you a free coaster. 7 days a week. Visit them at georgetownbeer.com. How are you, sir?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing?
Other than starting the show, Danny, have you ever done this? Well, I'm sure you have. We've all done this if you're in this business.
Yeah.
Start of the show. I'm going on for about 10 minutes. I realize I'm not live.
No. Yeah, that's tough.
I realize that I'm not recording.
Yeah. No, we've definitely all been there before. I've done full hour and a half long podcasts and then realized it didn't get recorded. So then you have to start over. So yeah, that's pretty demoralizing. That's tough.
It is demoralizing. And it's, what it is more than anything? It's humiliating. And you've got your pooch in the background. What's your dog's name?
He's George. I'm hoping he doesn't get unsettled. Sometimes I talk too loud and he kind of just gets annoyed and tries to leave, but my door is shut. So he's stuck here.
Oh yeah. Well, sorry, George. What kind of is that? What do we got there?
He's a Great Pyrenees mix. So he's got some of the Great Pyrenees size. He's got really long, fluffy hair. And he's a guard dog. Their Great Pyrenees are, I think, livestock guardians or whatever. That's their job. So he just barks his face off if anybody comes to the house. Trying to train him to be a little more just chill, but it's not working so well so far.
No,
he doesn't bite. He doesn't bite. He doesn't bite, but
no.
he's got an intimidating bark. So yeah, but he's a great dog.
All right, let's jump into it. The breaking news that came out about 40 minutes ago. Uchenna Nwosu on the injured reserve, done 4 games. Mike Garafolo just texted me and says he thinks it's going to be longer than the 4 games, not season ending, but we'll push past the 4 weeks. Just another blow to a defense that didn't need another blow.
Yeah, I know, because last week we had a little bit of optimism for the Seahawks coming off of that Lions game, but man, this is, like you said, this is just the defense that really can't afford to lose key playmakers like this. I just don't feel like they have the talent and the depth to really be able to weather that super well. We've seen that in the last 2 games. They've just been pretty bad on defense, really bad on defense the last couple of games. So it's pretty discouraging. Hopefully they can, get somebody else to step in and kind of to make a difference. Obviously getting Byron Murphy back, Boye Mafe back, that'll be helpful. But yeah, it's been pretty tough with the injury situation right now. And
I feel like, as someone who watched them as a fan of them, I'm mad at myself for allowing honestly, right, Danny, of allowing the overtime game against New England, and then it was a fun game Monday night against the Lions, to just blind me to the fact of the reality that I knew deep down inside was this defense really isn't that good.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still encouraged and hopeful. I still am a Mike Macdonald fan in terms of I think the future of the team, they're in good hands with him, but this is just a team that doesn't have the depth right now, I don't think, to be able to weather these types of injuries. And so, yeah, there's going to be ups and downs. I'm trying not to overreact too much because it's a long season. But yeah, I mean, obviously the defense has not looked solid the last couple of weeks. This is why we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. This is why having that 3-0 buffer was so important to start the season, because you're going to lose some stinkers too, right? And so, you know, there's good to get to that start. They're still in it. They're still a competitive team. Luckily, the NFC West is kind of a mess right now. So I'm not despairing at this point in time. I think the defense does need to improve a lot, though. They're just like basic stuff. It's the type of thing you can fix, like tackling and getting into gaps. And basically, you know, if you look at the Lions game, especially, there's just like guys run right through the line. So hopefully they can coach them up and get some improvement. I'm not hoping that there'll be an elite defense, but maybe just get back up into like the 20s or something like that in terms of rank. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for the rest of the season.
Well, and I am not like, I think I saw something yesterday on Twitter where people were like, I don't know if people were actually calling for him to be fired, or people were just making
after a few games
or making that up just for some, you know, to make themselves feel better. I don't know. I haven't heard anyone say they should get rid of Mike Macdonald.
No,
I do not want to get rid of him. I like him. I think he's a good coach, and I'm with you. I think it's the much better days are ahead. And I think it was probably too much of a task to fix this defense overnight. It's going to take some time,
right?
You know, especially with the communication stuff, right? It's more intricate than I think people realize about all the communication that goes on with these guys. You know, play after play. I mean, he's changing stuff on the fly, Danny.
Yeah. Whole new program, whole new system. There's going to be, you know, wrinkles with everything. They got to work the kinks out. This is, I mean, in any first season with a new head coach and new entire coaching staff, there's going to be stumbles along the way, I feel like. And so it's not super surprising. Obviously, it was a really ugly game. Seahawks should have beat the Giants at home. That's 100% clear. I saw a lot of people. I don't think I saw anybody calling for Mike Macdonald to be fired, but I did see quite a few people who were like, if this was a Pete Carroll defense, like, wouldn't we be pissed about this? Like, you know, maybe this isn't like the quick fix that we thought it was, which is probably true. You know, I'm still encouraged by the pressure rate that they've been able to generate. You know, there's definitely some like small nuanced things I think that are really exciting, but yeah, ultimately, you know, he wasn't going to transform the defense overnight, probably. And so we're starting to see that.
Yeah, Danny. And I think what happened is that I think that especially two of the first three games, it really blinded a lot of people to think how good they were defensively.
Sure.
Right? Bo Nix making his debut wasn't going to look good. And then Sean Payton didn't put him in any place to really make any plays. And then you get Miami, and they're without Tua Tagovailoa, and we know they just look completely different. Yeah. Right? They look awful. And so I think you see that, and then for some reason, the New England game, you kind of buried the New England game. And
there was some red flags.
Oh, there was a lot of red flags. I went over it today. I mean, Steven, they had 185 yards on the ground. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I looked at this. For New England, who's god awful? That's the most points they've scored this year. That's the most total yards they've had this year. And that's the most rushing yards they've had this year. Yeah. Which is just like, I mean, that just,
it's not great. Not great.
No, and that's the game I keep going back to. But I think we've said no. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to reference the Patriots game. We bury that deep down inside because they won the game.
I think some of the things that people were legitimately worried about coming into the season are starting to rear their ugly head. The lack of depth and talent at the linebacker position, and in particular, I saw the fellas Robert Mays and Derek Clausen talking about this on the Athletic show. Basically, when you have some injury situations happening on the front line, the defensive line, like the Seahawks are having right now, you lose some of your studs up front. That makes it so the linebackers have to do more. You know, they have to actually step up and really make some big time plays, because you don't have those guys in front, like kind of eating up blocks and taking on double teams and really doing a good job keeping the linebackers clean. Like, when you lose depth up front, it's a chain reaction type of deal. And I think the lack of depth, lack of talent, lack of impact players at linebacker position is really, it's a big problem right now. And it affects, you know, the front line, the lack of talent at the front line, or I guess the lack of depth on the front line affects the secondary. Like it's all a chain reaction. It's all connected, and you're starting to see it's affecting all three levels basically. I think the injury situation on the front line, and it was a tenuous situation coming into the year with no like established very good linebackers, and I think that's been a huge problem, especially against the run. They've just been getting gashed on the ground, which is really discouraging because that was like one thing I really was hoping would get fixed this year. I think the lack of tackling and just lack of discipline that we saw the last couple of years with the Seahawks and Pete Carroll Seahawks is like really a bummer. And and after the first few games, I was like, yeah, this is actually looking pretty good. But again, it's a long season. We're going to go through ups and downs. Hopefully they can clean things up and marginally improve on defense and, continue to compete. Cause I think the offense is still really good.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, right? Because we will overreact to what the offense did on Sunday, and okay, they didn't look good either. I mean, they couldn't. I mean, Ken Walker can't get 5 carries. There should be, right, Danny. There should be no game where Ken Walker, one of your best offensive players and obviously your best running back, touches the ball 5 times.
Yeah,
and that's got to be a learning process there for Ryan Grubb.
Yeah, for sure. And, that's the other thing I saw kind of on Twitter after the game is like, oh, college offensive coordinator again. Like, this is what we got. I'm still pretty encouraged at the end of the day for the offense. Clearly not a perfect situation in this last game. But again, like we talked about this after the Detroit game. I actually was pretty encouraged. They fought back at the end. Yeah. They put themselves in a position to tie the game. Very late, obviously giving up that block punt or block field goal was brutal. But I don't know. I still am very encouraged by the offense. I think the offense has a ton of talent. Lockett has been balling out. DK Metcalf, for the most part, has been really good, other than these like really dramatic mistakes he's been making, which is obviously extremely frustrating. But like I thought, from a pure details point of view, he's done really, really well in all the other areas, except for those huge mistakes that he's made. The 2 fumbles have been brutal.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And then Kenneth Walker looks like an all-pro. So and obviously Gino's been playing really well too. So I'm still really encouraged with the offense. I think they're going in the right direction. And this was just an ugly ass game.
I think the people that jump on DK and criticize DK have just never liked DK Metcalf.
Right. Right. He's a Rorschach test, I think, for a lot of people.
Yes, he is.
Because the lack of discipline, the fumbles is extremely frustrating. It feels like every week there's at least like one kind of big mistake that people hang on. And it's really frustrating. He reminds me a little bit of Sean Kemp, because like the highs are extremely, extremely high. Awesome player, physical marvel, some of the biggest highlight plays you can imagine. But then I remember being frustrated with him for fouling out. It was like
out a lot.
Drives me insane how often he would foul out, and he like never seemed to like care about or try and change. And so I think I'm kind of like in that same vein. I'm like, DK, dude, can you start to be like a little more disciplined? Like, please, for the love of God, I've been your defender.
What I can't understand is how he fumbles with those arms.
He's like so big and strong.
They're just, I mean, you see it. Like, how does someone fumble when you're built like the way he's built?
Look, maybe he needs to have a little more Lockett in him. Let's be honest.
Just go down,
catch the ball and fall down.
Well, then those who are mad, because I love when people get so mad at Lockett. Why is he going down?
It's hilarious, honestly.
Oh, God. And now I think he does it a lot more just to troll people.
He does like the tumbleweed thing. He turns into a tumbleweed, just starts rolling. Stop, drop, and roll. He's got some like fire safety like programming needs to get him to do an ad. Stop, drop, and roll. But yeah, the DK Metcalf thing. It's been he's a Jekyll and Hyde type of character, obviously in Seahawks land. I think I love
polarizing.
Him. Yeah, I love him. I think he's an elite talent, but and I've been a defender of his for like forever. But I'm like, dude, can you please stop giving your detractors reasons to like get on you about this stuff? Like, stop fumbling, stop having these really annoying penalties. And he'll finally be able to ascend to like that elite status, because I think talent wise, physical wise, like he's there and he's made some incredible moves, some incredible plays this year. But yeah, it's tough.
Well, and then he'll be tested on Thursday, right? Because this is the one team, Danny, that they know, and I guarantee that Shanahan and their defense are showing this tape all week long as they
Just
get ready for the
bait
game.
him.
Yep.
It's the Sean Kemp thing again. I'm
100%.
telling you. It's like get Rodman out there and try and like piss him off, get him to foul out, get him to do techs, you know. So yeah, a lot of similarities there. Yeah, I'm sure 100% sure they're going to bait him. And they talked about that the last time I think they played. And honestly, it's a good plan. It's a good plan on their part.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can get under someone's skin and make them and take them out of their game, then you win. And they've been able to do that with him. And that's like his next step. And to follow up your point, that's his next step, is that he's got to learn how to not let people do that to him. Yeah, that's a hard one though. I'd say this game of football, right? Like all sports, but especially football, is so much emotion in it. And
it's
he has
primal. It's like it's like warfare. I mean, these guys are going out there and putting their bodies on the line. They're, you know, people like when we're watching it, we have no idea. People that have never played football or at a high level have no idea. And that's me. I have no idea what these guys are going through.
I think we do this daily, don't you think? I mean, I think when I think of what we do, Danny, it's primal.
The exact same thing.
It's a lot of war. We're battling the trolls out there. It is warfare
for sure. It's totally no different at all than what these guys are doing. This guy's 230 pounds. He can run a 4.3. There's no difference between us, really.
He is unbelievable. What do we make of the Robert Saleh firing? Does Aaron Rodgers just make himself the coach, or how does that work?
I mean, he essentially is the coach, right? Like he's a player coach. It's like the old school baseball where you got like the manager is also a player.
Pete Rose back in the day.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I think he's kind of Robert Saleh is the first in what could be a line of coaches like sacrificial lambs if the Jets don't start playing better and start winning games. The Jets are pot committed to Aaron Rodgers at this point, and he's not been playing well. Like if you look at the offense, I think I saw this today. Through 5 games, the Jets had the exact same number of points last year with Zach Wilson than they do this year, and that's obviously not what you want, considering we just spent the last year being like, oh, things will change when they get Rodgers back. It'll be better when they get Rodgers back. I think I saw Eric Mangini or somebody said this the other day, like, because Woody Johnson is like an ambassador to the UK or was an ambassador to the UK. Like
I saw that
the loss in London, he like predicted this. Like if they lose in London, it's going to be heads will roll because he's like talking to all his friends in England and he's like all embarrassed about what's happening. It's just hilarious that this would be like the impetus for this, but yeah.
And then I read where he wasn't his hire because he was the ambassador to UK, that it was made by, I don't know if it was his brother or another relative that was the one who hired Robert Saleh because he wasn't truly the owner at the time. Like, I find that hard to believe, but whatever.
Like you don't have a phone, you can't call, you can't email.
You can't tell them, hey, I don't think he's the guy. We should try to hire somebody else.
It's kind of an important decision.
Here's who I want. I want a reunion. I want Belichick.
Would he do that would he play for the Jets or as coach for the Jets, I should say?
Why not? I don't know.
I mean, obviously, yes, they should do that. But I feel like there's just so much bad blood.
What about Pete Carroll? How about a Pete Carroll?
Oh, see, I could see that happening. I could see that happening
smacking
before.
His gum, the two gloves, the blonde hair. Bring him back, Pete. Let's go.
Heck yeah. Man, but yeah, like the Jets are just right now. Joe Douglas is just his seat's getting hot. So they gotta figure this thing out. They gotta start winning. Offensively, the funny thing is like Nathaniel Hackett would be like the obvious guy to fire, but like he's Rodgers' guy.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's a mess. They got to start winning, or else people are going to get fired. Joe Douglas probably next to.
How about they just hire John Gruden? Let's bring John Gruden. Can John Gruden come back to the NFL yet?
Did you see his TikTok?
Oh, Danny, I got it just for you.
Oh, good.
Danny, I'm going to play it for you because I don't know if people have seen this yet.
You know, when I was calling plays, I just loved it when our quarterback shredded the defense. I mean, just ripped them. That's what has me feeling really nicey. Like watching Jared Goff go 18 for 18, 292
he starts
yards
getting really weird here in a second.
I couldn't do that pregame warm-up.
Look at this. What is wrong with him?
Jaden Daniels, just a rookie. 26
Danny,
out of 30,
what is he on?
87%, 231 yards.
on?
He rushes for
How many drugs
47.
he's on right now?
He's doing everything.
Just coursing through
Shredded,
his
baby.
veins.
Watch this.
C.J. Stroud, 345 yards.
Do you think
Brings
the line
Texans
of
back,
cocaine
wins
is
it at
to the right
buzzer.
of the computer or to the left of the computer?
Just in the foreground, just before
Ready?
the camera.
Baker Mayfield coming off a tough loss.
I mean, look how he's
345
sweating.
yards.
I mean, I can.
He's in the dark.
He's in the dark.
Tampa Bay weather.
He's not
Beat 'em
wearing.
up,
He's probably not wearing
Keep
pants.
shredding 'em, baby. Sam Darnold. Who
Dang it.
thought the Vikings would be 4-0?
I mean, he's like a
275 yards,
sensation
3
on
touchdowns.
TikTok.
Go to Lambeau
I want-
Field and win again, baby.
I want to make fun
Keep
of him,
it rolling, Sam.
I
but
like it.
deep down, I'm kind of jealous that he's good at making content right here. This is how you do it.
That's what I.
I mean, he literally went viral with this stuff.
I know. That's what everybody said is like. Oh, there you go. That's what everyone said is like, God, why is he so much better at this than I am? I've heard that from a lot of people.
Seriously, it's wild. I mean, look, at some point, if you want to get big on the internet, you kind of have to have no shame.
Man.
And I feel like Gruden's like, I have nothing to lose. I'm just gonna freaking go. I'm just gonna do a full send on this TikTok.
So
thing.
entertained by that. All right, before you we cut you loose, we need to know, since it's Tuesday, and Tuesday is always a big day for fantasy football.
Yeah.
Danny's waiver wire Tuesday. All right, I want to know who's in, who's out. Who does Danny Kelly like?
All right, so at running back, we got Tank Bigsby for the Jags, who basically has looked like the best running back in the NFL. Full stop. I don't know what's going on because he was the worst running back in the NFL last year. Something happened. Maybe they should do the Gruden drug test on him. But yeah, he's great. I think Tyrone Tracy we saw from the Seahawks game is a good ad for the Giants, and then Trey Sermon for the Colts. If Jonathan Taylor is still out another week, which I think he could be, he's another guy to add. And then at receiver, I want to issue an apology because a couple weeks ago, you had a listener who asked me about Darnell Mooney, and I was like, you could probably do better. Look, I was wrong on that. I'm going to own that. I did not think they were going to make Darnell Mooney the 1B, right in line with Drake London in this offense, and I was wrong. NFL teams do weird stuff every year, and this is one of the weirder ones. But Darnell Mooney, absolutely got to add him if you haven't already. And again, I apologize for your listener for that piece of bad advice. But he's looked great, and weirdly, they're making him like a huge focus in this offense. He's got a 24% target rate on the season. Drake London has a 26% target rate, so he's like 1A and 1B in that offense. If he's gone, Jalen Tolbert is another guy that's, I think, on the uptick right now. You got Brandon Cooks and he's on the Cowboys. You got Brandon Cooks on IR. Tolbert has emerged as like the number 2. It's looking like Dak has quite a bit of trust in him. Double-digit points in 3 out of the last 4 games. So I think he's like starting to emerge as like a clear-cut number 2 for the Cowboys. And then Josh Downs for the Colts. He's a little bit dependent on Joe Flacco being the quarterback, which I think they're probably going to go back to Anthony Richardson. And
should they go back to him?
I don't know. Honestly, this is something we talked about on our pod this week. Like in any given season, only like 7 teams are actually trying to win. And I feel like if the Colts were actually trying to win, they would just keep going with Puckett. They would keep going
with me. I'm a hell of a quarterback.
They would keep going with Flacco because, I mean, look, he's been awesome. If you look at like what he's done the last like 2 years,
he's incredible, Danny. He keeps doing it.
I was kind of a hater for a while there with Flacco, and I'm like, the whole elite thing was like tongue in cheek. I'm like, dude, this guy's good. Get him out there, especially at the state of the NFL right now, where teams are forcing quarterbacks to kind of dink and dunk. Like he's still pushing the ball downfield. He's like, I don't know, man. There's something there. You know who he'd be good on this year? The Browns. I don't understand why they.
It'd be great on the Browns. I mean, Watson is done.
He's toast.
He's just not the same player. That's one of the worst. I mean, will go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history.
All time.
Whether they had 12 guys in the field or not, him walking towards the sideline where the game's on the line,
right.
It just was a bad look, and it just
the vibes are atrocious. They're in the basement. And then finally, Juju Smith-Schuster for the Chiefs. Kind of surprised me. This is like the first time he's had 130 yards in a game since like 2020 or something like that. It's been a while. And so, but he looked pretty good playing that Rashee Rice role. Obviously, he's not Rashee Rice, but He looked pretty good on running those crossing routes. Had 8 targets. I think he could, and he should have had a touchdown. He bobbled it, and it led to an interception. That was a fun play. But yeah, I mean, it looks like he's going to kind of inherit a pretty big role in this offense.
And how about the Kareem Hunt comeback too?
Yeah, Kareem Hunt. That was one of my guys from last week in terms of the waiver wire, and he's looked really good. He's sort of emerged as their starter. Carson Steele can't stop fumbling the football. So yeah, I mean, the Chiefs, there's some opportunity here with the waiver wire because of the injuries that they've gone under. So yeah, I like Kareem Hunt, like Juju a little. I don't love Juju Smith-Schuster just because he just doesn't have it what he used to have, but there's a lot of opportunity right now for him.
All right.
And then tight ends, just I don't know.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do. There's no good tight ends in the NFL. So
I was going to ask you because the former Husky Cade Otton's kind of been playing better of late, hasn't he?
He's one of my guys. In fact, he has a 20% target rate over the last 3 weeks. Yeah. He has more catches than anyone on the team over the last 3 weeks. He's not like creating explosive plays, but he's established himself as sort of like the security blanket underneath. In a season when no tight ends are producing big numbers, you kind of have to take what you can get. And Cade Otton at least is getting targets and playing time. So he's definitely a guy to keep in mind. Colby Parkinson, former Seahawk, another guy to keep in mind. They're on a bye this week. The Rams are, but he has a 26% target rate this season. So, this last 3 weeks. And he has definitely emerged as another guy that Matt Stafford just trusts him. He's underneath guy. 13 targets in the last game. So again, beggars can't be choosers. These aren't great options, but it's better than nothing. So
there he is, folks. Danny Kelly. Follow him on Twitter, Danny B. Kelly, senior staff writer, Ringer Fantasy Football Show, Ringer NFL Draft Show. Tell them where they can watch, where they can listen to all of your programming there at the Ringer.
Yeah, the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. We have 4 shows a week: Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. In fact, we have a live show that goes on tonight on YouTube at 3:45 p.m. YouTube. It's kind of like a preview to our Wednesday show. So if you want to watch that live, go to YouTube. Check that out, Ringer YouTube. So yeah.
Good stuff. All right. It's all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, locally owned and operated by Manny and Roger, 2 diehard Huskies. They've been pouring the best local craft beer for the past 23 years. Makers of Manny's Pale Ale, Bodie, Zaffa, of course, Lucille, Rogers, all of your favorite beers. Tap room open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Visit them at georgetownbeer.com. In case you missed any of this, it'll be up on YouTube later. Also, check it out on the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, and, of course, PuckSports.com. Danny, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you, sir.
Sounds good.
There he is, Danny Kelly from the Ringer, talking all things football, fantasy football, the Seahawks, all the storylines, including the news on Uchenna Nwosu, who has been placed on the injured reserve. Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network was first to report that. Garafolo texting me a little bit ago saying that, hey, expect it to be longer than 4 weeks, but not season ending. So not good news for a defense that really just hasn't performed all that well so far at the start of the season. All right, we go from the National Football League. Ladies and gentlemen, we talk college football every single Tuesday. It's our guy, John Canzano. He is live in Portland, Oregon. Beautiful Portland. It's all brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. Best selection of pizzas and local Northwest craft beers. You can visit Zeke'sPizza.com. Follow John on Twitter, John Canzano BFT. Read all of his work at JohnCanzano.com. Listen to the radio show, The Bald-Faced Truth in Portland, 750 The Game. When are you going to be on TV down there? Why don't you just hit TV up now, too?
I did 10 or 12 years. Thanks for noticing. Hey. I did a Sports Sunday show on the NBC affiliate here in Portland every Sunday night. It was fun, but it was downtown Portland at 11:30 at night. I'm not going to say more. I'll just leave that out there.
Oh, so a little rough than what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. When you come to your car and somebody's broken in and they've taken their time to take everything out of the car, go through everything, your kid's Play-Doh in the back seat. They've opened the Play-Doh, taken the Play-Doh out. Yeah. A thorough job, I must say, but that was about it for me.
Yeah, welcome to my neighborhood. It's just at this point, you're bound. You just can't. They don't break the windows yet, but they go through it.
Yeah.
They go through. If you leave your door unlocked, they just go through. The vampire just walking around late at night. All right, let's go all things college football. Let's jump into it. Oregon, Ohio State, the game of the century in Eugene. Game day will be there. Should be just a fantastic environment. Your buddy Wilner has had these stats where these teams traveling these time zones haven't done well.
Yeah.
What's the feeling like in Oregon as they're leading up to this game against the Buckeyes?
I think people are a little anxious, but I also think, like, look, if you are a Duck fan, you've been talking about this game for months. When the minute the schedule came out, this was the game everybody pointed to and talked about because it was a game that was supposed to happen during the pandemic and got wiped out. And so I think there's a lot of excitement. I think you're going to get energy inside Autzen Stadium that's going to be real similar to what the energy was for the Colorado game last year. And that was a bit of an ambush. Now, Colorado was in over its head. We all knew it, and it was a matter of them being exposed. But I kind of wonder, even though Ohio State plays in a huge stadium and they go to the big house, I kind of wonder about the atmosphere at Autzen Stadium and how, 63,000 or so will affect, Ohio State, a team that, let's face it, both these teams, Oregon and Ohio State, haven't really played anybody. So we don't really know if they're good, but we're going to find out which one of them is better on Saturday. Should be the largest crowd to ever see a sporting event in the state of Oregon, Puck. How about that? 63,000 is the record. I think they're going to go over it.
Okay, you always see this. How do they go over it? It only holds a certain amount of people. How do you keep going over this number? Wasn't there a game last year where they set the record?
Yeah, they set the record, I think, a few years ago against Arizona State.
Okay.
And Rob Mullins, the athletic director, they sold out the seats. They have now sold out standing room only tickets. I asked him, how many people can you get in there? Because there's this IndyCar race that happened in Portland that drew a cool 63,000, but promoters, Puck, they had no turnstiles. They estimated 63,000. Who knows how many people were at that race out at the raceway? But at Autzen Stadium, you're right. There's a finite amount. And Rob Mullins told me, he said, we'll get as many people in there as the fire marshal will allow us. And so I think they'll push the envelope a little bit. And I think, we've seen them push towards 60,000. I don't think 63,001 is out of the question because I think they're going to want to break the record.
Okay, can they beat them? How do they? Of course they can. Yeah. How do they beat them?
Well, Dylan Gabriel's got to be better. He's the key for me, and he's the biggest question. I didn't think we'd be talking about this after a 5-0 start, but he looked shaky in the red zone. Last week against Michigan State, he threw two picks in the red zone. Week before that, he threw a pick 6 in the red zone against UCLA. He looks like he's pressing when they get in the red zone, and his coaches sound and looked like they were a little bit frustrated with him. It's the first time I've seen that from Dan Lanning. He said after the game, he said, we just took all the decision-making out of it at some point and decided to run the football. And so I thought that was a really interesting comment after the Michigan State win, but Gabriel's got to be better. We know he has it in him. When he was at Oklahoma, he beat Texas in a last-second, touchdown pass, 15 seconds on the clock, had a great game against Texas, but he's been in big environments and big games. He just hasn't looked great in the red zone, hasn't looked comfortable in Will Stein's offense. And this is, I think, a byproduct of the transfer portal. 3 schools that he's been to in his college career. He acclimated at Oklahoma, but it's only been a few months at Oregon, and he doesn't look comfortable.
Is this a lack of not using his legs, you think, more in the red zone?
A little bit, because I think that, look, coaches are looking at the season, and if you're Oregon, you're looking at the season and going, okay, there's a potential here you could play 18 games, and so you don't want Dylan Gabriel to break a collarbone in week 4 against Michigan State, and so or even against Boise State. And so I do think that they have dumbed down the playbook a little bit or gone a little bit vanilla in that respect, and maybe told him, get down unless it's a first down or a touchdown. And so I don't think he's attacking that way either. And you're right. Like on all 3 of the interceptions, he's rolling out of the pocket. He's got a decision to make, and he just makes a bad decision and tries to throw into a window that's too tight. And those are good athletes out there. I mean, Michigan State had good DBs. UCLA's got athletes out in the secondary. And so you make a mistake, try to throw into a window there, and yeah, you're going to get an interception. But I'd like to see him run a little bit more, use his legs a little bit more. I also know that you've got Dante Moore and you've got Austin Novosad, two really good quarterbacks in that room that are really, offer a different dimension. I think Novosad might be the best passer of the three, but I think Dylan Gabriel's the key this week. If he's comfortable, Autzen Stadium at home, I don't know if either one of these teams is really great. They both look pretty good. I think Oregon can win this game, Puck, if they play clean.
You buy into this time zone theory from your buddy Wilner. I mean, I look at Ohio State. They've given up 34 points total this year.
Yeah.
Now, you can make an argument. Have they played anybody? Well, Michigan State, Iowa, at least in the Big Ten. Other than that, no one. Marshall, Western Michigan, Akron. So I mean, this is clearly the best opponent that Oregon's going to face. Don't know how dynamic they are at the quarterback position, but it's old school football, right? They're going to run the ball. And they're going to play great defense. But do you think they're affected by this travel?
I think they are. I think all the teams are. I think even Miami was affected going to Berkeley.
Okay.
I think it's probably explains a little bit why they looked the way they did in the early parts of that game. And then, they come roaring back and, we're all going, well, it's just a football game and they're on a charter. Yeah. But you're talking about not just a road game. You're talking about a road game across multiple time zones, body clock issues with kickoffs. I think it's really interesting that this has been positioned as a 4:30 kickoff. I think that doesn't kill Ohio State. If it was a 7 o'clock kickoff or late game, like, Miami had to play at Cal, maybe that's a different story. But even the teams that are playing competitively in these games they don't look good. They don't look great. Nobody's looked great going across the country. So I do think that's a factor. This game, we're in Columbus. I'd probably pick Ohio State. I'll make my official pick Thursday, but I'm leaning towards the Ducks because I'm looking at Ohio State going, who did they beat? I'm looking at Oregon going, who did they beat? We don't really know, Puck. And all I know is that Oregon's defense, their front seven, looked really good and dominant against Michigan State. I compared the first half stats because that's where you got to look if you're looking at kind of a blowout game. Oregon was a little better, a little more dominant in the first half against Michigan State.
Okay, but for that Michigan State game, that you could look at what Oregon did defensively against Idaho. Yeah. And they couldn't stop him on the ground. Boise State, no one's been able to stop that guy. And then, in comes a rushing attack, for Ohio State that's averaging 6.2 yards a carry on the ground.
The coaching edge is going to Ohio State in this game. I think they've got Chip Kelly. They've got Ryan Day. They've got some state secrets over there. They took the running backs coach, Lockwood, and, took him from Oregon. So I think if you're looking at the coaching matchup, tip the cap to Ohio State. But I'm still coming back to, last week was the first time I thought Oregon's offensive line looked dominant. Okay. And the defensive line was very disruptive. It was the first time I thought they could beat Ohio State. Now, it may be fool's gold, maybe Michigan State on a Friday night traveling across the country. Maybe they don't give their best punch. But I'm leaning towards a really close game played in the 20s. I think it's something like 27-25, 27-24, 28-27, something like that with these two teams. I think it's going to be it'll be a rematch in the Big Ten championship game. And, if you're buying the coaching theory, you would say that, Oregon has its best chance to get Ohio State early rather than late.
Let's flip it over to Washington. Your takeaway from their victory against Michigan. You
mentioned it. You said must win.
They're printing up T-shirts, by the way, that say we should be 6-0. I just want to pass that.
Well, hey, look, this is a great win for Jed Fish early in his tenure. It's exactly what they needed in the first 5-6 games of the season, because the later part of the schedule, we've talked about it. It gets brutal. So this was a really opportunistic, event for Washington, and I think one that they can sort of hang their hat on here in the first half of the season, because it didn't go like they wanted it to. The game at Rutgers was terrible. They lose the Apple Cup. There were a lot of, self-inflicted wounds. So it was nice to see, a team that has had some things go against it, figure some things out. That said, I still think there's problems there. I think it says as much about Michigan and the travel as it did Washington. But if you're Washington, you take that W and you spin into the next week. And if you're Washington State, you also kind of go, hey, that's helpful to our cause as well, because you're watching Texas Tech and you're watching Washington go out into the world and do some work for you.
Yeah, I could see Texas Tech go ahead and win every one of their remaining games for Washington. I hope they lose all of them.
But
I understand the thought behind it. The more they win, it makes your game, your victory look better.
Yeah, they do good. You look good. So,
sure.
But Washington's limited, especially on offense. I mean, you really look at them, and I think, they're going to run into some problems later in the year. I watched the Penn State UCLA game, for example, and I have a hard time seeing Washington get to 15 points against Penn State's defense. I just think they're going to suffocate them. I mean, I think Jed Fish knows better than anybody. He's an offensive coach. He's looking at what he has, and he's just trying to MacGyver it through the rest of this season. Now, are there 8 wins out there? Are there 9 wins out there for Washington? Sure, if they play lights out, there's some opportunities there for the Huskies. But there are some games where I'm just going, that's a loss, that's a loss. But as we have figured out, Puck, in 5-6 weeks here, like, do we really know? Like, is USC good or not? Like, there's some questions still about some of these opponents that are remaining on the schedule. So all you can do is handle the team in front of you and try to salvage this year. This is a building year for Jed Fish.
This is why this year's the 12-team playoff is going to be fast. It's going to be such a runaway success because there are no dominant teams. Yeah. You just saw Alabama get knocked off by Vanderbilt. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Can we have a laugh about that? Can we just have a laugh?
Coming up later, I'm going to play that rant on Feinbaum's show. I can't wait. I just, I was going to ask you about Deboer. I mean, this is what you signed up for. And this is the problem with going into that school. And it's not to say he didn't earn it. He did earn it. He's an unbelievable coach. He's one of the top 5 coaches, top 3 coaches in college football. And he's proven it year in and year out. But you can't follow this guy. You are in a no-win situation there because it doesn't matter if you win multiple championships there. They won't care. You'll never be Nick Saban. And he's always going to be now put up towards Nick Saban. And now he just had one of the worst losses in school history. And it completely wipes away what they did 2 weeks ago against Georgia.
Yeah, they're feeling pretty good. It's Frank Sinatra Jr. I mean, I remember when Marvis Frazier got into the boxing ring and we thought, oh, that's Joe Frazier's kid. And then we went, you can't do that. Go another direction, go another path. And for Kalen Deboer, I think, look, we get the ambition of it. It's Alabama. Maybe there was no tie to Washington. But I have to think Husky fans were feeling pretty good about beating Michigan, of course, and watching Kalen Deboer faceplant.
I mean, the common thing, at least out here, was social media wise, hearing people talk was see Jed Fish when he actually concentrates on the game can beat Michigan, because the thought was Kalen Deboer, which is I don't agree with. I think it's complete BS. Like Kalen Deboer, I guarantee was fully all in on the national championship. Yeah. You can multitask and interview at the same time. It can be done.
Yeah, winning that would be that's a career tentpole moment for winning that game. He's not gonna half bake that game. But here's the other thing about the Pac-12 teams, or let's just say the teams in the Pacific time zone that have played for the national championship. Right? You go back to Oregon in 2011 BCS title game, Oregon in 2015, Washington last year. 3 teams. And they played what? They played Auburn, they played Ohio State, and they played Michigan. The rushing totals for those 3 games, the disparity for the bigger, more physical teams not in the Pacific time zone was 853 to 253 combined in those 3 games. You just got pushed around. Michigan pushed Washington around. Auburn and Ohio State pushed Oregon around. It's why the SEC's kind of cornered the market on giant defensive tackles. And, Mike Leach said it when he was down at Mississippi State. I said, what's the biggest difference in the SEC? And he said, they all have 2 or 3 guys that are going to play D tackle in the NFL. And in the Pac-12, we didn't. Yeah. Maybe Oregon had one and USC had one.
The one thing that I think, along those lines that I think is in Washington's favor is they take on Iowa. And again, that's going to be a 9 a.m. kickoff for them, at least for their body clock, for coming up this week. I think the one thing it has going for them is they have a Big Ten running back in Jonah Coleman.
Yeah.
They do. Not many people have that.
And then Iowa's a little bit limited offensively. That plays right into what Washington is doing, right? Washington and Michigan, that game was, I picked Michigan to win it, but I thought it was a real close game in the 20s. We could all kind of see the trend of that game. The same thing is happening with this Iowa game. And there are a couple opportunities later in the year. It's like I look at UCLA's schedule, Puck. They have very few opportunities to win games because they can't get to 14 points. They can't get to 15. And so I think for Washington, at least Jed Fish is getting them into the 20s. And, he knows what he needs to do. He needs to go out. They need to reload at the receiver position. They need to be a little better on the offensive line. He needs to get his guys in there. So, it's like I watched Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. It was just, they're so overmatched right now. It's not even about coaching at that point.
Was Jonathan Smith asked in the post game at all about the point spread?
I don't know if he was, because I didn't go into his post game presser, but I can tell you over the years that, he was probably aware of the spread. I think most coaches are. And I've had Jonathan Smith comment to me before, I do my weekly picks, right? And he was a subscriber. Dan Lanning's a subscriber. These guys,
shout out those guys. They're supporting JohnCanzano.com, and you can be a subscriber too. Just go to JohnCanzano.com and sign up today.
Greg Sankey's a subscriber.
Come on, really?
Come on, I'll name drop.
You name drop all these people. This is great.
But here's the deal. Like, I had Jonathan Smith one time. I picked Oregon State to upset USC like 2-3 years ago at the Coliseum. It's a big upset over a ranked team. You could kind of see it coming. Oregon State was good. Nobody knew it. Right? They were physical. They were running the ball. It was like week 5. They go to the Coliseum. It's their game, and USC's going, here comes Oregon State. They're not up for that game. So I picked Oregon State to win, and Jonathan Smith, after the game, walks by me, and he points at the scoreboard, and he goes, yeah, you only had us by 1 point. So it tells me he was looking at my picks, right? Then another
wasn't the Civil War? Didn't he? You told this story to me about the Civil War, didn't you?
Yeah, he knew the point spread before the game. He knew that it had moved. He came over to me on the sideline, and the game it was the Civil War 2 years ago, and the spread had gone from Oregon being a favorite by a couple of points. Now all of a sudden Oregon State was a favorite. Jonathan Smith comes out of the locker room and sees me. He walks over to me on the sideline, and he said, "Hey, why did the spread move?" He wanted to know like what injury there was. Was Nick's not playing? And it turned out Kenny Dillingham had accepted the job at Arizona State. And so Jonathan knows the spreads. Before I picked Oregon State to win games, but not cover. And he'll make a comment to me, hey, you picked us, but you didn't have us covering. Now, I don't think that means he's gambling, but I think it means he's aware of the spread.
I was going to ask you, which app does he use, John, you think? DraftKings, FanDuel, or you have your own there in Oregon, right? Is the Oregon State Lottery?
Yeah, we have DraftKings now.
What is it? What's his alias? Can you find out what his alias on DraftKings is?
I don't think he's gambling. Okay,
I know what it is. It's at Goodwill Beaver.
That people are asking, did he stop by Goodwill after the Michigan State loss to Oregon?
Well, I agree with you. He's probably not betting on it. Okay, but I do think. And you and I, was full disclosure, we texted about this. I think it does raise a red flag a little bit for people that if there was a group that would oversee this for college football, I think it would raise a red flag to go, yeah, why is he kicking a field goal there?
But did you see Tosh Lapoy, the defensive coordinator at Oregon, as they were lining up for the field goal?
I did not know.
Okay, he was way into it too, and so the camera goes to him on the sideline.
Because Lapoy had Oregon in the points,
and anybody who could read lips knows that he was going miss right as the ball was in the air. Okay, so like anybody who's got a stake in the game.
So Lapoy's over there on the sideline going in-game betting, bet Oregon.
But I think they all know that. Only giving up 7 versus giving up 10 or whatever you're giving up in the game looks better.
Okay.
They're going to use that stuff to recruit. It'll be held up against them. I think
they're going to use the point spreads in recruiting. Well, we're 44-1 against the spread. Come to Oregon.
But if you go into let's just say you go into a situation where you're recruiting, you're up against Michigan State for a recruit, and
sure,
and let's just say it was a shutout situation. He kicks a meaningless field goal to avoid a shutout. It might just look better or sound better than having the other coach be like, hey, we beat him 45-zip. I don't know.
I want you're talking to Dan Lanning on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Can you ask him that? Does he know the point spread?
I'll ask him.
I'm just curious. Who would answer it? Maybe Lanning won't, because I'm not. He's got bigger questions to answer than, hey, do you know the point spread? He's getting ready for the Buckeyes.
I'll go even further.
Do you bet on the games, Dan?
I had Jonathan Smith a couple years ago. The point spreads are paywalled on the website. And Jonathan Smith said, "Oh, you're paywalling the point spreads." Like, Jesus. And
This guy's got a problem, John. Then what are you going to do? A deep dive in Jonathan Smith?
No.
Is Pete Rose?
No, I don't think he's Pete Rose. But I do know they read everything. They've got a guy on every staff who is out there listening to every podcast, reading all the people that they think are in on the team or know things that are going on.
Disrespect.
They're looking for some little angle that might not exist. Yeah. I had even Dan Lanning a couple of years ago in front of a Civil War, is his first Civil War game. He says, "You've seen a lot of Oregon State. What do you think?" I mean, he's not looking for me to give a deep scout on their 13 personnel, but I think he was looking for any bit of intel that he could get on what that game meant to Oregon State or what was going on. I don't think it's unusual. And Bill Rabinowitz, who works at the Columbus Dispatch, he came on my show yesterday. I'm doing a podcast with him. I guarantee you Oregon's going to listen to both and Ohio State's going to listen to both.
It reminds me, you always play the disrespect card, right? Before and after a game. It's Jim and I were discussing yesterday. I laughed and not because he's not wrong, but like Jonah Coleman after the game is screaming into a camera, "No one believed in us. No one gave us a shot." And I'm like, you were favored to win the game. But Vegas did.
Yeah.
Vegas has a lot of money tied up in these games, and they predicted that you were going to win the game.
You know what, Puck? When you went out on your own, no one believed in you. And when I went out on my own, no one believed in you.
And
look at us now.
And they still don't.
Look at us now.
Look at us now. There was
realignment. Let's talk about realignment.
Realignment, because boy, it's on the back burner. Nothing's happened. Since Gonzaga? What's going on with realignment talk? I love realignment talk.
Yeah, like 3 of the 4 Sundays in the last 4 Sundays, 3 of the last 4. We've had teams added to the Pac-12. And so Sunday came and I was kind of like, okay, who are they adding?
Yeah.
And nothing happens, right? So I am told that they are working right now to get they're hiring their media consultant. They're not going to go with the same outfit that they used, that George Kliavkoff used.
Oh,
no
good.
doubt.
Wise.
Yeah. So, but they're hiring their consultant. They're going to market. It could be fast if they use a traditional partner like ESPN or Fox. Could take more time if there's a streamer involved. Gets more complicated if you get new partners. It's more complicated if you have multiple partners. Given that there's a basketball element here, I kind of wondered, would they try to kind of a la carte the basketball? Would they try to split it out and give basketball rights to one entity and maybe football to another? Because now you're selling Gonzaga and the brand of Gonzaga. Maybe ESPN or Turner would be involved in that kind of discussion. But I'm told that it would be really surprising if they split them. So they're looking for somebody who, or some combination. And the cool thing is, I think the advantageous thing is that they don't have any competition in the marketplace right now. And so they're the only ones in line, and they're about to go to rights. And so it could be a matter of just a few weeks. It could take a month or 2. I don't expect it to stretch beyond when we start seeing the conference championship games and that, because they've got to model too. They've got to ask these media partners, hey, present us a model that includes UNLV. Present us a model that includes Memphis and Tulane in South Florida. Present us a model that includes Sacramento State. Present us a model that includes fill in the blank of Pac-12 school that departed. They may have some real creative models here and approach, future members, because they've got to add one more school that plays all sports. So I expect that, they'll say, hey, model Cal for us, just so we can put something in front of Cal, even though it would be really hard for them to get out of their grant of right.
That Sac State's making a real push, isn't it?
Yeah, they are. And a little bit like SMU trying to get into the ACC. Remember that? I talked to the boss hogs down at SMU.
Johnny, we got so much goddamn money, John. It coming out our asses.
It was so funny being on the phone with those guys. They're all in the petroleum business one way or another.
Yeah, they are.
And, some of them are brokers. Some of them are actually getting their hands dirty, but they're all in the business. One of the guys told me, I said, what about the exit fees in the American? It could be $25 million. And he said, hasta la vista, baby. Send us the bill.
But I just envision every one of those guys. It's 2 characters that come to mind. Okay, it's Boss Hog from Dukes, and then it's Garrity. Do you ever watch Friday Night Lights, the TV show? Yeah. Buddy Garrity. Those are the 2 guys. I just think they're cigars and talking about oil, and all that. Are you a Yellowstone fan, by the way?
I love Yellowstone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new series that guy that created Yellowstone is
No,
coming
I
out
haven't
with?
yet. No.
It's all about the oil business
Okay.
in Texas. And Billy Bob Thornton's the main character.
Oh,
It's
great.
gonna
Yeah.
be unbelievable. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
The lawsuit, the $1 billion, $2.7 billion. They're going ahead with it, right? They're going to pay these athletes. What does this mean for college athletics, college football?
It means that you're going to see two things. Like, someone's got to pay the bill, right? And it's not going to be your football program. They're not going to start cutting scholarships or defunding football because, as one AD put it to me, you've got, if your athletic department's a business, about 16 of the 18 locations are not profitable, right? So you got football and men's basketball making money. So you're going to see all the resources pointed there. Title IX compliancy is going to make you continue to fund your women's sports, but you're going to see, things like, the men's rowing team and gymnastics or track and field. You're going to start to see, hey, no more scholarships there. I mean, we're already seeing that at some of the major schools that are saying, Ohio State's no longer going to fund this, or Georgia's no longer going to fund that. And you're going to see that because they have to pay for it somewhere, and it's not coming from football. You're also going to have, it's essentially kind of an opt-in situation. Like, and how deep do you want your pockets to be? Can you afford to go all the way in? So I do think you're going to see some tough decisions made by some Power 4 schools, or maybe some of those on the bubble. Are you going full throttle or not? Also, this whole idea that there could be a super league that comes in behind it, funded by private equity, that's out there as well. I think this is just getting started, Puck. I think, anybody who tells you they know what it's going to look like is lying to you, because it could turn into the NFL light. It could just be the Big Ten and the SEC running away with it. Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are going to meet this week. Got lawmakers, including one in the state of Washington, who told me that, Congress is looking at this. Like, could there be antitrust violations? If you try to lock and secure and guarantee automatic bids for the Big Ten and the SEC, is that an antitrust violation? So I think a lot of saber rattling going on out there too.
What is preventing college football from just having a commissioner, a czar?
I think two things. One, it's really complicated to split it away from the other sports. As much as we can all say it, or Chip Kelly can say it, there are some complications here, and some of it involves Title IX and how do you separate the funding of one from the other. But it could be done. But the ADs, when I bring it up, they kind of look at me like, come on, you guys don't understand how difficult this would be to split it away. So that's one piece. Like, how do you split it away? But I think what's really stopping it is the Big Ten and the SEC seem to have an allergy to it, because they already have a super conference, Puck. It's them. It's the two of them. And so, the illusion of the autonomous four, the Power 4, is still out there. It's why I think the Big 12 and the ACC and the Pac-12 need to stay shoulder to shoulder to shoulder right now, because there is strength in numbers. But if Greg Sankey wanted to be czar of college football, he could be czar of college football tomorrow. But he's got a more powerful and better job in the SEC right now. And so he doesn't have to deal with the whole ecosystem. He's just dealing with his university president. So I think that's the biggest pushback. I would love to see it. I think Sankey be the right guy. He's smart, knows what he's doing. But that would take, the Big Ten and the SEC going, hey, look, this isn't great for us, but we're going to acknowledge that this is great for the sport. We're going to step back a little bit.
What do you make of the Cougs traveling to Ole Miss next year? Have you ever been?
Yeah, I haven't been to Ole Miss. No, okay. I've been to Mississippi State. So
I've heard Oxford is unbelievable.
This is a Dave Brown thing. And for people who don't know Dave Brown, he's the scheduling guru at, Gridiron Football, who does all of the scheduling, right? He is the savant behind the scenes. I've talked with him a couple of times. He literally, I've written about him. He literally knows off the top of his head who has open dates like 2 years from now and what weeks. And he's a freak that way. But his fingerprints are all over this, because I reached out to him to try to figure out, like, how are Oregon State and Washington State going to do 2025? And he kind of referred me back to the Pac-12, but I could tell he was working on it. I found out later he's been hired by the Pac-12. He is consulting with the Pac-12. He's helping them put together their 2025 schedule. So all of a sudden, what did you see? You saw Wake Forest back out of a game against Ole Miss. Red flag went off. Oregon State adds Wake Forest. All of a sudden, Washington State's playing Ole Miss. It's a twofer. You got two out of one. right? It's the same deal that they did with this Texas Tech game this year. Texas Tech backed out of the Oregon game, went to Washington State. Oregon State played Oregon. That's a Dave Brown special. I mean, his fingerprints are all over this thing.
Cougs got a great schedule next year. They're at Ole Miss, at Virginia. Two great environments to go to.
And when you start to think about, like, you look, the Mountain West was trying to extort him for $30 million to play a bunch of games. Like, as one of the Pac-12 ADs told me, hey, we can buy the games for cheaper than that. Like the biggest buy this year, I think, in college football, Alabama's paying like $1.7 million for a game. But, you talk about, trying to get, your schedule put together, get 12 football games, $30 million is way too much money for that. Should have been closer to like maybe $7 million. And so I think they did a good thing in hiring the guy who knows how to put schedules together. And he's found a bunch of teams that are willing to do the 2-for-1s. And so I think Oregon State's happy with where they're going in 25. And I think Washington State as well.
I get two quick things for you, then we'll cut you loose.
Yeah.
Okay. For the Cougs, didn't play last week. We have seen this. A familiar storyline has developed the last few years with Jake Dickert. They get off to these good starts, and then they crumble. He's off to a 4-1 start. At Fresno State, home against Hawaii, at San Diego State, Utah State at home, at New Mexico, before they face Oregon State on November 23rd. Next 5 games. Their record when they play the Beavs is going to be what?
I think they're still going to have one loss. I believe in this team. I get it. Dickert, his team, I call it a swoon, right? He swoons mid-season. I don't see it this year. Fresno State, Bulldog Stadium's a tough place to play, but they're not going to lose that game. It's just going to be closer than it should be. I like John Mateer. I like the running game. I think Dickert is focused. Love what he said on his show with you last week. Talked about being there for 10 years and that, he sounded like a guy who's super committed and understands it. This is a big year. And I think for Washington State and Oregon State, neither one of these programs could afford to disappear. So you cannot afford a swoon against Fresno State and who else? New Mexico and Utah State and San Jose State. Wow. Oregon State's playing San Jose State. You've got to beat these teams because you didn't invite these teams into your conference except for Fresno State. But, this is a game they should win. Oregon State has to go to Boise later in the year. That's not a W.
All right. What's your record right now betting wise?
I'm at about 58%. I was 6 last week. It was a bad week.
Okay. It's still pretty good. I know your picks come out on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. Thursdays.
Thursday
morning.
This is where Jonathan Smith and other coaches have the paywall to get through for the picks. This is where Smith is, he's sweating bullets, money down.
I don't think
I know you're not saying that. Can we just?
He's got a guy.
He's got a guy that makes the picks.
Who's looking at it and going, "Hey, the point spread moved by 2 points," and they're going, "Who's not going to play?" I think it's a coaching thing, Puck. Unlike Pete Rose, who, by the way, should be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, of course he should be in.
Anybody.
Good Lord.
It's okay to put a scumbag in the Hall of Fame. They've done it before. I have a vote. He's not going to appear on the ballot. I'd vote for him. I voted for Barry Bonds. He did bad things too. They let him play. It's supposed to be a museum. All right, that's my rant.
Okay, so give me one pick this week. Who do you like? Give for people who want to gamble. Talking to you, Jonathan. For people who want to put some money down on a game. Who do you like this week? Give us one game.
Who's San Jose State playing? San Jose State is a 1.5 point favorite against you. Who is they playing? Come on.
I'm trying to pull it up. Jesus.
Come on.
San Jose State. They are favored by 1.5 over Colorado State.
They're going to win that game by more than 1.5.
Now, San Jose State's a good football team.
San Jose State's fearless. Colorado State, I don't think they have the offense to run away with that game, even though they're at home. I like San Jose State to win that game by a field goal or more. That is my 5-star blue plate special, whatever pick.
It's your Canzano bald head lock of the week.
Yeah, I looked at that one. There was another one in the Mountain West that jumped out at me as well, but I can't remember. I'll look for it Thursday.
All right, squeeze that gambling question into landing if you can.
I'll ask. So how do you want?
I'm going to ask Dickert next time. Well,
it's
next time,
my first question, okay? But
right out of the bat. Hey, the line's 3.5. Which way you betting, Dan?
I will. I'll slip it in late. He always asks me a question too.
He does.
You should have Dickert do that with you.
Okay.
put him in the spot. Say, hey, look, at the end of the interview, I always go to Lanning and I go, okay, ask me a question. So, the last time he said to me, hey, I bet, we always talk about like, what are the coaches saying on the headsets? He said to me, how do you concentrate on doing a radio show when you've got the earphones on and you got a producer in your ear and they're telling you 60 seconds or you need to go to commercial break or whatnot? And, he asked me a question about that. So there you go.
I like
I know
it.
what's on his mind.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do that. He know what he wants to do. He wants to do this. I don't know if Dicker was joking, but that's what he wants to do. Cause he's done like with that 10 years, he's done. He says he's done coaching. He's out.
Yeah.
He's
well,
out.
I'm the same way. 10 years for me. That's it.
You'll
I'm
be
the
a
same
lifer. You're a lifer.
No, I won't be. I won't be that old guy. All respect to that old guy. Okay. I love old people.
Jim Moore.
I have respect for old people. I am not going to be that old guy hanging around the press box who people go, what is he doing here?
Get out.
Like, I will not be there. You know what I'll be? I'll be at like a Big Sky Conference football game watching true college football. Being
I envision, what I envision you doing?
What?
Like teaching high school, and you're like a high school baseball coach.
I've coached high school baseball. I did.
Maybe assistant?
I was an assistant on a varsity team after I graduated college and it was fun. It was fun. I tried teaching, Puck. I was in a classroom for about a year, and I knew my first day of school is a horrible story. It's a horrible story. I don't know if it's safe for air, but my first day of school at my old high school. So I go back to my high school and I'm teaching English and Spanish at my old high school, and I'm coaching football and baseball. Okay. First day of class, kid in between periods got stabbed and killed right in front of me. Not to bring you down, but it was not what I remembered high school being like. It was gangs. It was awful. And it broke my heart because, you go to school. What's the worst thing that happened to one of us at school when we were kids? Like somebody get in a fight or, your friend, you have a friendship that's not going well.
Got too high at lunch. Yeah.
I don't know, but it was heart-wrenching to watch that. And so I look at what teachers are doing in schools today, public schools, especially. What are they doing? They're parenting, they're social worker, they're psychologists, they're doing, they're doing it all in addition to teaching. So I have too much respect for teachers for me to pretend that I could be one. So I got out of that pretty quick.
I got an idea. You and Jay Smith start a gambling podcast.
You won't stop with this. Somebody's gonna take it out of context.
I know.
Put it out there.
That's why I keep doing
next
it.
to John Gruden's Chucky madness that's going on the internet right now. And then people are gonna be like, "Oh, did you hear what he said?"
I'm gonna ask Dickert about it next time. I think Dickert comes on in a week or two. I'm gonna ask him.
I guarantee you, if they're honest, they all know the spreads. Yeah. I mean, come on.
I'll get Soft to ask Fish about it.
Yeah. And
then Fish will somehow turn it back into, my time's in the NFL.
I remember one time I told
always
Fish,
back to the NFL.
One time I told Fish, he took a hiatus from college football, because he went to the NFL. I called it a hiatus.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't know if I would call working for Bill Belichick going on a hiatus. So
Belichick's everywhere. That guy, he's got Husky gear on left and right. When Fish leaves, Belichick may be the new head coach of the Huskies.
Yeah. Well, look, hey, that would be interesting. Not boring.
Oh, that would be amazing theater. Yeah. All right. I've way too much of your time. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you, man.
There he is, John Canzano, Bald-Faced Truth, joins us every single Tuesday talking college football in case you missed it and want to rewatch it. It'll be up on YouTube later. You can also listen to it Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, one-stop shop, PuckSports.com. Johnny, brought to you by Zeke's Pizza, best selection of pizzas and local Northwest craft beers. Visit Zeke'sPizza.com. You can follow John on Twitter at John Canzano BFT. Read all of his work. Go subscribe. You are not going to be disappointed. I'm telling you, it is. You can spend any amount of money, by the way. It's so worth the $5. JohnCanzano.com. Check out his radio show there as well, The Bald Face Truth. He does it, of course, every single day down there in Portland, Oregon. All right. We got to wrap it up today. Sorry for the technical problems at the beginning of the show. I promise you, it was some of the 10 minutes of the best radio or the best entertainment I've ever done. Was the first 10 minutes of the show that actually was never aired because I forgot to hit the Let's Go Live button like an idiot. Hey, What the Puck is brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle, your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage, kiddos. They are locally owned and operated by two fine human beings, Trent and Derek. Well, it's really Trent's baby, and Derek just rides along. Make them your call when damage to affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Seriously, we're getting into this time of year, right? Floods, rain, leaves, damage, anything. You want an operation that is a one-stop shop to fix anything with your house. And they do it all. They will take care of you. The reviews are great. They are just honest, down-to-earth people. I wouldn't be partnering with these guys if they weren't rock solid. Nothing that we do here on this show. Like, all these guys are vetted. All of our sponsors. I mean, look at all of our sponsors on the show. And Restoration One's is a prime example of this. Locally owned. They're not big corporations, right? They're small family-operated businesses. Restoration1.com is going to help you out if anything does damage your residential or commercial property. All right. This one's a long one, but I got to play it. And I told Jim yesterday I was going to check in with Feinbaum because I know, listen, like years ago I would listen to a show. There was a caller there who's now since passed away, Tammy from Auburn. She was an Auburn Tigers fan, and I loved her. I loved her to death because she was just great. She'd call in every week. And like Feinbaum is not entertaining, but his callers are what makes the whole thing work. And they're unhinged. They're obsessed with college football. It's in their blood. I love it because I love college football. So I get jealous of how serious and crazy they are down there about it. We don't have it that like out here on the West Coast. But it's their professional teams, and it's just in their blood. So I knew when Deboer lost that it would take a bunch of calls from a bunch of people from Alabama, and they'd be calling for Deboer's head. And it's already started. And this one is one of the better rants that you've probably have seen or heard, but in case you hadn't, here on Hey, What the Puck, the Alabama rant about Coach Kalen Deboer on the Paul Feinbaum show was one of the best.
Alabama don't lose to Vandy. We don't lose to Vandy. That is friggin' pathetic, Coach Deboer. 40 years, dude. 40 years. Bill Curry didn't lose to Vandy. Mike DeBose didn't lose to Vandy. Mike Shula didn't lose to Vandy. 40 years. You've been here 4 weeks, and you already lost to Vandy. Strike friggin' one, dude. Strike friggin' one. The honeymoon's not only over, but we need some serious marriage counseling between me and you, dude. Let me tell you how pissed I am, Paul. Can I tell you, brother?
I wish you would. Go right ahead.
My neighbor gave me a picture of Coach Deboer last Thursday, a signed picture, 8x12 in a frame, and I put it in the fire pit Saturday night at midnight and set a match to it.
You burned it.
I burned it. I apologize to Nick Saban for putting a nail next to him and putting it next to him. 40 years, dude. You've been here 4 weeks, and you already lost to Vandy. And let me tell you something. I'm really unimpressed with your press conference. I mean, you act like it's one game. No, it ain't one game, dude. It ain't one game. You ain't at Washington no more. You ain't at Prairie View, wherever the hell you was. You ain't there no more, brother. You at Alabama. You're at Alabama, and we don't damn lose to Vanderbilt. That's pathetic. better wake the hell up and realize where you at, because we don't play that down here, brother. You might get away with that in Washington, but down here in Alabama, we don't play that. We'll send a U-Haul to your ass if you lose to South Carolina. You better stop worrying about last week's game and get your ass focused on the game coming up at Alabama. The honeymoon's over. Wake the hell up. You know what this is equivalent to, brother? You know what this is equivalent to?
What's that?
This is equivalent to coming home and finding your wife in bed with the neighbor. This is what this is equivalent to, Paul. And I'll say this for this. Me and K-Dub both agree. You could never trust her again. You might stay with her for the kids' sake, but you could never trust the woman again. And the same thing's true with Coach Deboer. You can win a natty. We can't trust your ass now. You just proved that you can beat the best and lose to the worst in a 2-week friggin' period. You don't lose to Vanderbilt. That's the ugliest little sister on the block. We are Alabama. We don't lose to Vandy. Understand, Coach Deboer. Wake the hell up. We don't lose to Vandy. Strike friggin' one. The honeymoon's over, and we need some damn marriage counseling.
Oh, God, I love that. I love all of it. It's so good. It's if you've never listened to the show, maybe you don't like Feinbaum. You see him on College Game Day, but like the old school Feinbaum, when he just, the old school radio show, when he just takes phone calls, because that's all he does, by the way. It's like 3 hours, or how long the show is, of just taking phone calls from guys like that. And it's just about college football. That's it. And it's only about the SEC. And there's characters everywhere. I mean, Tammy from Auburn, who's passed away, she was married to an Alabama fan, so she'd bitch and moan about her husband, but you knew it was coming. The second he lost that game, it was coming. And there's people there that didn't want him in the first place. And that's the problem with DeBoer. He's a hell of a coach, but you just can't replace that guy. You can't be the guy after him. You just can't do it. And the thing for Kalen Deboer, what he's got to hope, and again, it's just one loss, but it's a problem that it's again a loss against those guys, is that he'll never. It doesn't matter. Like that caller's right. Doesn't matter how many national championships he wins. They won't trust him. They'll never. And here's the thing too: they'll never fully accept him. By the way, they won't. They just won't do it. He's got to hope that he has a couple of good years in him. Stock still remains high. He's got a hell of an agent. He's probably his ultimate goal, I would imagine, would be in the NFL and get to the NFL as fast as he can, because Nick Saban's a legend and it's a hard job. I mean, I commend him for taking it on. A lot of people would turn that job down because they don't want the pressure. And he said, you know what? F it. I'll take the pressure. I get it. But there's a lot, man. That's a crazy fan base. It just is. And that was just an all-time phone call. All right. Once again, apologies for the late start to the show today. Once we got up and rolling, we were great, good to go. Danny Kelly, big thanks to Danny Kelly for joining us from the Ringer, his weekly visit, brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. And again, Danny will be with us Tuesdays, moving throughout the rest of the NFL season. We'll talk all things Seahawks, NFL, fantasy football with Danny every Tuesday again at 10:20. And then John Canzano, all things college football. That remains the same, 10:45 on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, again, mentioned this yesterday, mention it one more time. Wednesdays, Rob Staten. Well, Jim's back. Jim's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. For those wondering why is he not on every day, that's a Jim call. Jim he's in retirement. He wants to only do 3 days a week. He's golfing, hiking, walking the dogs, pissing off his neighbors. That's what he wants to do. Rob Staten will join us live. There's the thumbs up emoji, which I got to figure out how to get that off of the program. I don't know why it does that. Rob will join us at 10:30, now live on Wednesdays. We were taping Rob, but now he's going to join us live. And then Ryan Divish is back. Ryan Divish has agreed to just be on throughout the offseason. We'll talk Mariners. We'll talk sports. I mean, Divish can't just, he can talk other things other than baseball, but a lot of it will be baseball talk. And we got the playoffs and all that. I didn't get to it today in the rundown, but these Major League Baseball playoffs have been fantastic. They're great. And it's historic, by the way, because I put it up there, MLB playoffs historic. It's historic because it's the first time in the 31 years of the Major League Baseball divisional series, when they introduced it back in 95, that each divisional series now is at 1-1. It's been great theater. The Padres-Dodgers stuff with the fans and the interaction with Jurickson Profar, Dave Roberts overreacting to Manny Machado throwing a ball at him. Your life wasn't in danger, Roberts. All of that is just fantastic. They hate each other. The fan bases hate each other. The players hate each other. The managers hate each other. That's great. Phillies, Mets, sensational. Every game's, so far has been awesome. Castellanos booed, hits the game-winning RBI, hugs his son. That's great. That's just been great drama. Tigers trying to do, pull off just this incredible run. That went down to the wire in game one, even though it looked different. The score looked more one-sided. Then Tarek Skubal gets the ball. Of course, Seattle U. He's just been dominant. Royals, Yankees, Royals. Salvador Perez still kicking around. They're doing the Lord's work to try to knock off the Yankees. It's just been phenomenal. It sucks that the Mariners aren't a part of it, but if you're a baseball fan, these Major League Baseball playoffs have been great. So that's Wednesdays. We'll talk with Divish again at 11 o'clock. Thursdays, Garafolo back on. And again, we will go deep into the Uchenna Nwosu news. If you're just joining us, Uchenna Nwosu is going to be on the IR. So he'll miss the next 4 weeks. He can come back when they go to San Francisco. Garafolo had texted me telling me that he says, you can go on the air with this. He believes it's going to be longer than 4 weeks, but not season ending. So even after the 4 weeks are up, according to Garafolo, don't expect to see Uchenna Nwosu back on the field, but did say he does not think it's season ending, which is just a blow for a defense that is struggling right now. So we'll talk to Garafolo on Thursday. Friday, we got our handicapper Troy wins, and then Chris Egan wraps up every Friday. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Again, if you haven't downloaded the PuckSports mobile app, please do it today. iOS users, iPhone users, Google Play. It's still taking some time to get that approved, but I think we should have it by the end of the week. So Android users, you'll have it as well. The glitch has been fixed. You can listen to the app and then go away from it, or it can go dark. We fixed that. Just update it on your iPhone, or if that doesn't work, just re-download it again. But you can listen to us now daily on the PuckSports mobile app. Big shout out to Jacob, our app guy. All right, that's it for us here on a Tuesday. We're going to record the Puck the Huskies podcast later today. Can't wait to talk to Jordan Reffett, and still in talks about printing up the T-shirts. And Jordan's going to take on the bill of we should be 6-0. That's what we're going to title this week's Puck the Huskies podcast with Jordan Reffett and Elise Woodward. We should be 6-0 podcast. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, we promise to be better.
No shirt, no shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah. I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!